Nestled in the serene landscapes of Dafeng Village, Jingchuan County, Gansu Province, China, lies a tranquil rural area surrounded by lush green mountains and crisp air year-round. The villagers here primarily sustain themselves through agriculture and livestock, living a life largely untouched by the hustle and bustle of the outside world. However, this peace was shattered one fateful morning in late May 2009 by a horrifying discovery. A local farmer, Mr. Huang Jinwu, while herding his goats on a mountainside, stumbled upon a shallow pit containing the bodies of two young women hastily buried. This gruesome find not only sent shockwaves through the local community, but also gripped the nation, becoming one of the most brutal murder cases in recent Chinese history. The victims, two young women, full of dreams and aspirations, were savagely killed by a solitary figure driven by dark desires. Hello, welcome to the Blood and Truth channel. Today we will delve into the case of the murdered female students in Gansu, a heartbreaking story of lost justice and the hidden darkness within human nature. Join us as we explore the grueling investigation undertaken by the police and the profound lessons this case imparts. At around 8 a.m. on May 30th, 2009, Huang Jinwu, a 55-year-old farmer from Dafeng Village, was leading his goats to graze on the western slopes as he did every day. The weather was humid with gentle breezes carrying the scent of damp earth from the previous night's rain. Huang paused near a dense thicket where the ground appeared slightly sunken due to recent landslides caused by heavy rain. Using his hoe to inspect the area, he struck something soft, unlike stone or tree roots. Curiosity turned to horror as he dug deeper and uncovered a human hand protruding from the shallow soil. Initially thinking it was a hallucination, Huang continued digging only to reveal two female bodies stacked atop each other in a pit just 50 centimeters deep. The first body was that of a young woman wearing a torn white blouse and mud-stained jeans. Her face was disfigured by decomposition, but visible bruises around her neck and wrists told a grim story. The second body lying beneath was in a similar state with long, tangled hair and scratch marks on her arms. Neither woman wore shoes, and drag marks around the pit suggested the killer had hastily buried the bodies without digging deeply. The stench of decay overwhelmed Huang, prompting him to flee back to the village to alert the authorities. News spread rapidly, plunging Dafeng Village into fear and disbelief. It was the first time in decades that such a serious crime had occurred in this peaceful rural community. The Jingchuan County Police quickly arrived at the scene after receiving Huang's report. They cordoned off the entire mountainside, setting up barriers and beginning evidence collection. The crime scene was a rugged, remote hill about 2 kilometers from the village, covered in dense vegetation. Investigators noted that the burial pit was shallow and hastily dug, likely exposed by the previous night's rain-induced landslide. Scattered around the site were fragments of broken rope, a blood-stained piece of cloth, and a small silver earring glinting in the sunlight. These items were carefully collected and sealed while the forensic team began a preliminary examination of the bodies. Initial forensic findings revealed that both victims had been sexually assaulted before their deaths, with clear signs of violence on their bodies. The cause of death was strangulation, evidenced by hand-shaped bruises around their necks. Based on the level of decomposition and environmental conditions, the time of death was estimated to be 3 to 5 days prior. Police also collected samples of gray-brown clay found on the bodies, a type of soil distinct to the nearby industrial area. These clues pointed to a premeditated act by a ruthless perpetrator. Meanwhile, rumors began to swirl in the community, with some speculating about ghosts or outsiders committing the crime. After transferring the bodies to the Gansu provincial morgue for detailed autopsies, the police began identifying the victims. Based on physical characteristics, two young women aged approximately 20-25, about 1.6 meters tall with long black hair, they cross-referenced recent missing persons reports. Within hours, they matched the descriptions to a report from Shanghai Zhao Lina 22, and Siyun, 23, final-year students at Shanghai Normal University who had been missing since May 25th. Zhao, Lina, and Siyun were vibrant, ambitious young women. They had traveled to Dafeng village to conduct research for their graduation project on rural education and to volunteer as teachers for local children. Lina, from a middle-class family in Shanghai, was outgoing, loved traveling, and was passionate about community service. She often wore silver earrings, one of which matched the one found at the scene. Siyun, her close friend from a farming family in Hunan, had earned a scholarship to attend university. Reserved and studious, she dreamed of becoming a teacher. The two had arrived in Gansu by train, renting a room in Dafeng village and starting their volunteer work on May 20th. According to the landlord, the two women were last seen on the evening of May 25th when they left to take a walk around the village. They were dressed in jeans and white blouses, consistent with the clothing found on the bodies. The village's peaceful reputation meant no one suspected danger, but when they didn't return the next morning, the landlord reported them missing. However, due to the village's remoteness, the initial report wasn't prioritized. The victims' families were devastated upon learning the news. Lina's parents flew from Shanghai to Gansu, collapsing in tears beside their daughter's body, while Siyun's poorer family borrowed money to make the journey to claim her remains. Further autopsies confirmed horrific details. Both victims had been repeatedly raped with semen still present on their bodies. They had been beaten with injuries to their heads and limbs indicating fierce resistance. Samples of hair, blood, and the gray-brown clay were sent to a DNA lab in Beijing for analysis. The clay was confirmed to be from an industrial site, not the rural hillside, providing a critical lead for the investigation. Following the forensic report about the distinctive gray-brown clay, the Gansu Provincial Public Security Bureau's task force realized that the mountainside burial site was merely a dumping ground. The clay, mixed with cement, coal dust, and fine metal particles, was characteristic of industrial areas, not natural rural soil. Led by Captain Liu Mingkai, a seasoned officer with over 20 years of experience in homicide cases, the team shifted their focus to abandoned industrial sites near Dafeng village. These sites were remnants of the region's industrial boom in the 1980s and 1990s, shut down due to economic reforms and environmental concerns. The primary suspect site was the Donghua factory, located 5 kilometers northeast of Dafeng village. Built in 1975, it had been a thriving hub for brick and cement production, employing hundreds of workers. By 2005, however, it was shuttered due to outdated equipment and pollution, leaving behind a 10-hectare wasteland of crumbling buildings, rusted smokestacks, and scattered debris. The air was heavy with the smell of mold and lingering chemicals, and locals rarely ventured there, calling it a haunted place frequented only by scavengers. On the morning of June 1, 2009, under the scorching Gansu sun, a 15-member investigation team equipped with flashlights, evidence bags, cameras, and scent-tracking dogs descended on the Donghua factory. They arrived in 2 off-road jeeps navigating a bumpy dirt road flanked by overgrown weeds. Captain Liu divided the team into 3 groups, one to search the main buildings, another to scour the back courtyard and debris piles, and a third to use dogs to track scents. The atmosphere was tense as the team knew they might be standing where the victims endured their final horrific moments. The first group, led by young detective Zhang Xiaoping, a crime scene specialist, began in the main workshop, a vast structure with a perforated tin roof letting in eerie streaks of sunlight. The air was stifling with thick dust coating the cracked concrete floor. Within 15 minutes, Zhang spotted a meter-long streak of dried blood on the floor, its irregular shape suggesting someone had been dragged. The blood was still slightly tacky, indicating the crime was recent. The forensic team collected samples using chemically treated swabs and photographed the scene from multiple angles. Near the blood stain, they found several long, glossy black hairs, about 20-30 centimeters in length, clearly belonging to young women. Zhang carefully collected them with tweezers, noting their location. Further inspection revealed a small blood-stained piece of cloth with delicate floral patterns matching the description of Zhao Lina's blouse. This discovery sent chills through the team, confirming that the victims' clothes had been torn here, likely during a struggle. Deeper inside the workshop, the team found a rope tied tightly to a concrete pillar. The old industrial rope bore professional knots and traces of eyelashes and dead skin, suggesting the victims had been bound and held captive for hours or days. Captain Liu remarked that the perpetrator was no amateur, likely familiar with the factory or industrial settings. The rope was cut into sections for fingerprint and DNA analysis. Meanwhile, the second group searching the back courtyard found significant clues in the open area, littered with broken bricks and metal scraps. Beneath the dust, they discovered clear drag marks stretching 5 meters from the workshop's rear gate to a thicket. The marks indicated the killer had dragged the bodies with deep scratches from shoes or body friction. The scent dogs led the team to a corner of the yard where they found small blood droplets and a discarded women's sandal size 36 matching Siyun's shoe size. The most critical find came from the third group using the German Shepherd Hazy. After sniffing the victim's clothing from the morgue, Hazy barked frantically and led the team to a hidden corner behind a pile of bricks. There they unearthed a small blue student backpack half buried under decayed leaves. Inside were notebooks, pencils, and educational books clearly belonging to the victims, as a student ID bore Zhao Lina's name. The notebooks detailed their volunteer work, May 24th, taught Dafeng village children basic letters. They were very well behaved. The final entry, written in shaky handwriting, read, "Went for a walk in the village today, met a strange man asking for directions. He seemed friendly, but looked odd." This entry was a bombshell, suggesting the killer was not an outsider, but a local who deliberately approached the victims. Captain Liu ordered the backpack sealed and sent for fingerprint analysis while directing the team to interview villagers, focusing on solitary men with unusual behavior or ties to the donga factory. Forensic teams collected 10 clay samples from the factory floor, later confirmed to match the clay on the victims' bodies, with identical compositions of 30% cement, 20% coal dust, and 10% metal particles. Simultaneously, the Beijing DNA lab reported that the semen on the victims belonged to a male aged approximately 40 to 50, with blood type O and genetic markers common among Han Chinese in northwest China. However, it didn't match any criminal records, indicating the killer had no prior convictions. The hair and blood from the factory matched Zhao Lina and Siyun's DNA, confirming the factory as the primary crime scene and suggesting prolonged sexual violence with the victims, likely held for at least 48 hours. The team reviewed limited traffic camera footage from a nearby intersection, capturing a blurry image of a middle-aged man on a bicycle on the night of May 27th, carrying something heavy. Though the face was unclear, his height of about 1.7 meters and slight limp became key details. The police cross-referenced employment records from the Donghua factory, 1990-2005, narrowing down a list of over 200 workers to focus on single middle-aged men living near Dafeng village. Villager interviews provided further leads. A 70-year-old woman living near the factory reported seeing a middle-aged man loitering at night, his eyes darting suspiciously. Another villager recalled seeing the two girls walking on May 25th, approached by a local man pretending to ask for directions. These accounts narrowed the suspect pool to about 20 individuals. Captain Liu, in a late-night briefing, emphasized, "We're dealing with a cunning killer familiar with the area, but he made mistakes leaving so many traces. Stay focused, justice will come for these girls." The discoveries at Donghua factory marked a turning point, stirring fear in the community. Women in Dafeng village avoided going out alone at night, and parents tightened control over their children. The victims' families, informed of the findings, were devastated. Zhao Lina's father wept uncontrollably, while Siyun's mother whispered, "My daughter just wanted to do good. Why did she meet such a monster?" The gruesome details, bloodstains, torn hair ropes, cut deeply into their hearts. With critical evidence from the Donghua factory, the investigation team moved swiftly to identify suspects. The case had become a national focal point, with villagers whispering about a predator in their midst and the victims' families pressing for justice. The police reviewed resident records within a 10-kilometer radius of Dafeng village, targeting single men aged 30-50 with ties to the old industrial sites, especially those with unusual behavior or minor criminal histories. From an initial list of over 50, they narrowed it down to 10 potential suspects. One name stood out: Deng Zhiguang, a 44-year-old loner living on the western edge of Dafeng village, just 3 kilometers from the factory. Deng Zhiguang was born into a poor farming family in Gansu. A reclusive child, he shunned social interaction. His parents died in a work accident when he was young, leaving him alone in a dilapidated mud brick house. After dropping out of middle school, he worked as a mechanic at the Dongha factory from age 18. Known for his skill with machinery, he was avoided by co-workers due to his erratic temper and unsettling stares at women. When the factory closed in 2005, Deng became unemployed, scraping by with odd jobs like repairing bicycles and farm equipment. He spent much of his time wandering the hills or drinking cheap liquor alone in his dark home. Neighbors described him as ghostly and unsettling. Liu Shilan, a 60-year-old neighbor, told police she saw him staring at young women, particularly visiting volunteers, with an eerie intensity. Other women reported his harassment, such as following them to the market or sending cryptic letters, but these complaints were dismissed in the remote village. Deng's heavy drinking led to nighttime outbursts, further isolating him. Medical records revealed untreated mild depression and personality disorders. Police surveilled Deng for 2 days, June 3-4, observing his solitary habits. He rarely left his house except at night to buy food using an old bicycle with a rear basket, capable of carrying heavy loads like bodies. On June 5th, a 6-officer team led by Chief Detective Wang Ming raided Deng's home without warning. The sky was overcast, mirroring the rain that had exposed the victims' bodies. Deng's ramshackle house with a rusted tin roof stood isolated in a barren field. When police knocked, Deng opened the door, visibly shaken, his eyes bloodshot from drinking. Deng initially protested, shouting, "What are you doing? I haven't done anything," but complied when shown a search warrant. Inside the house was chaotic, littered with empty liquor bottles, food scraps, and old newspapers. Under a rotting wooden bed, police found a small metal box containing a blood-stained cloth, a woman's comb with long black hairs, and a second silver earring, matching the one found near the bodies. Deng paled as the items were revealed, collapsing into a chair, trembling. Further searches uncovered ropes identical to those at the crime scenes with dried blood, visible under UV light. Deng's rubber boots were caked with the distinctive gray-brown clay from the Dongha factory. In his wardrobe, clothes bore mud and tears consistent with a struggle. A hidden diary under his mattress detailed his stalking of village women, including chilling entries about the victims saw 2 city girls today, beautiful like fairies. They laughed so happily it made me jealous. I want to keep them forever. Later pages described Zhao, Lina, and Siyun specifically, the one with long hair and silver earrings, the other quiet. They walk tonight, this is my chance. Faced with overwhelming evidence, Deng was arrested and taken to the Jingchuan County Police Station. In the interrogation room, under cold neon lights, he initially denied everything, insisting, "I don't know those girls, you've got the wrong person." But when shown photos of the victims and the evidence, he broke down sobbing like a child. After over 2 hours, Deng confessed. He admitted to being consumed by loneliness and suppressed desires. Obsessed with Zhao, Lina, and Siyun's beauty and vitality, he stalked them for days, noting their routines in his diary. On the evening of May 25th, as they walked a quiet village path, Deng approached, pretending to ask for directions. He then attacked, using ropes to subdue them. They fought and screamed, but no one was around. "I gagged them and dragged them to my house," he said. There he held them captive in his locked bedroom, binding them with ropes. Over the next 2 days, he raped and beat them as they resisted. They begged and cried, but I couldn't stop. "I thought they were mine," he said chillingly. Fearing discovery, Deng moved them to the Donga factory on May 27th, transporting them one by one on his bicycle at night. In a dusty, dark corner, he strangled them, watching them struggle until they went limp. "I panicked but felt satisfied," he confessed. He then cycled their bodies to the mountainside, dug a shallow pit, and buried them, hoping they'd remain hidden. The rain on May 29th exposed his crime. DNA tests confirmed the semen matched Deng's, as did the blood and hair at the factory and his home. His diary revealed a disturbed mind, with experts diagnosing antisocial personality disorder and pathological possessiveness rooted in his lonely childhood. The arrest shocked Dafeng village, with residents demanding justice outside the police station. The victims' families were shattered. Zhao, Lina's mother, clutched her daughter's photo, sobbing. She only wanted to help others. Why this monster? Siyun's family, struggling financially, expressed rage he must pay for his crimes. In August 2009, Deng Zhiguang faced trial at the Gansu Intermediate People's Court. The 3-day trial drew hundreds of villagers. Deng pleaded guilty but showed no genuine remorse, saying only, "I couldn't control myself." The court sentenced him to death by lethal injection and ordered him to pay 50,000 yuan to each victim's family for funeral costs. The case profoundly impacted the community. Dafeng village, once peaceful, became wary with increased security measures. The victims' families were left with enduring grief. Zhao, Lina's parents were broken, and Siyun's family sank deeper into poverty. The case sparked nationwide discussions about women's safety in rural areas and the need for sex education. The murdered female students in Gansu case is not just a story of crime, but of shattered dreams. Deng Zhiguang, a lonely man consumed by dark desires, stole the lives of 2 promising young women, leaving lasting scars on their families and society. What do you think about the murderer? In this case, please comment below to share your thoughts. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Blood and Truth channel for the latest updates.